Welcome to 5 Points Blues presentation of Back to the Basics. Everything you wanted to know about Cowboys football, but were too afraid to ask. Here are your hosts, Nikki Harrison and Christy Scales.
Happy Tuesday. Welcome to Back to the Basics. Everything you wanted to know about Cowboys football, but were too afraid to ask. I'm Nikki Harrison here with Christy Scales. Well, our season is over.
I know. The offseason started a few weeks earlier than we wanted. But
Yes, it did. Yes, it did. We all saw the Dallas Cowboys fight hard, but lost 30-22 against the Los Angeles Rams on Saturday. And you were there. Was it as electric and crazy and tons of Cowboys fans like they made it seem?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And especially behind the Cowboys bench. And I think most people were settling on the crowd being about 50-50. But I can tell you when they first opened the stadium a couple hours before kickoff and the first fans, ran in, the first several thousand, behind the Cowboy bench, it was at least 15-1.
Wow.
Cowboys to Rams. And then as the stadium filled in and it got closer to kickoff, there were definitely, more Rams fans at that point in the different parts of the stadium and behind the Rams bench. And in the Coliseum, it was built in 1923. So
Wow,
it's really
it is
old. But a lot of Rams, anyway, both teams come out of the same tunnel. And so there were a lot of Rams fans around that. But I thought that the smart thing that the LA Rams did was hand out yellow towels. Mm-hmm. And so the folks who were watching the game on TV could see all the, when they do the crowd shots, you'd see the yellow towels flying. But if they didn't have that, if you just looked up, you'd see so much of the Cowboy blue and silver and white. It was a very impressive showing for Cowboys fans. And what's really great is there were times when the defense was calling for crowd noise and the Cowboys on the bench were signaling to the crowd, make noise, just like it was a home game.
Wow. Okay.
You don't see that often at an
No, that's almost disrespectful.
Well,
In a way. Okay. Well, I want to touch a little bit on the game since it's our last one that we'll be talking about for the 2018 season. It was a good game. But I have some questions. But before I get to the questions, what happened to the defense?
I know. Well, the team had been so great at stopping the run all year, allowing about just over 3.5 yards a carry and gave up over 5.5 yards a carry. A record-setting number of rush yards for the LA Rams in the playoffs and a record-setting number of yards allowed by the Cowboys defense, rushing yards in a playoff game. And they just, Nikki, you hear it, you're blue in the face. And it's something I talked about on the pregame show. Well, what's the number one key today? Well, sorry to be trite, but it's true. You have to stop the run. And that's what defensive coordinator Rod Marinelli, that's what every player on defense is. We have to stop the run. And it's boring, but it's true. And they couldn't stop the run, and they couldn't get the Rams off the field. They were getting good gains on first down or second down and giving themselves third and short, able to convert on third down. Conversely, the Cowboys were unable to run the ball.
Right.
And Zeke Elliott ended up with, 47 rushing yards? Right. The Cowboys barely had the ball because they were only 1 of 10 on third downs. And I'm not great at math, but that's 10%, 1 out of 10. And so the time of possession was just going crazy. It was so lopsided in favor of the Rams, which meant that the Cowboy defense was out there and they were already giving up a lot of running yards and getting dominated by the Rams offensive line. And then you get worn out. Right. That's the great thing about having a good run game is you wear out that defense.
And they looked exhausted by the second quarter.
And see, that's the thing, that the Rams use the formula that the Cowboys normally use.
Okay.
Right? We pound Zeke, and when we need to, we go over the top. Well, heck, the Rams, Jared Goff, 15 completions? He didn't have to do hardly anything.
Right.
And then when they, the one time we needed a third down stop, Goff carries the ball and gets the first down. So it was just very disappointing because I'll tell you from the sideline perspective, our defensive line, they were just getting blown off the ball. Yeah. The Rams' offensive line was just pushing our guys sideways, backwards. Our defensive line, which had been so great, particularly our defensive tackles, Antoine Woods and Malik Collins, all year getting penetration, getting in the backfield, disrupting the runs or, being stout up front. It just wasn't happening. And then zero pass rush. A couple times early in the game, they blitzed. Van Der Esch blitzed one time. Jalen Smith, they never got a sack, but they affected the passer, Jared Goff. But other than that, I mean, he had all day to throw.
He did. He really did.
So he didn't even really have to, but when they did, they were effective.
Wow. Okay, well, I'll go to our first question. Katrina in Rowlett, she says, it seemed like the Rams were hurrying up the plays and the defense looked confused. What was going on?
Yeah, well, they were hurrying up to the line of scrimmage. They weren't. When you say hurry up offense, people think like 2-minute drill, and they're trying to get the ball snapped in like 10 or 15 seconds. And what the Rams were doing very effectively was hurrying up to the line of scrimmage and forcing the Cowboys to get in their spots. And what it does is it allowed not only Jared Goff, the quarterback, to see how the Cowboys were going to line up, but it allowed Sean McVay, who's the Rams head coach and the play caller and the offensive genius, to also have a look. And the thing is, you know how play calls go into the quarterback's helmet? They have a radio receiver.
Yes.
There's a guy up in the booth with the NFL, and as soon as the play clock hits 15 seconds, he turns that microphone, the radio signal off. So by hurrying up to the line of scrimmage, making the defense declare what they're going to do or at least get lined up, if you do that quickly, then Sean McVay is still in Jared Goff's headsets telling him stuff until there's 15 seconds left on the clock.
Oh.
And if you get up to the line of scrimmage quickly and the defense doesn't get set, you can snap it quickly.
Yeah.
And maybe catch them off balance. But the point was not so much to like hurry and snap it within 10 or 15 seconds. It was, here's the look that we're getting from our defense, from that defense. Okay, and here's how we may adjust our play call.
Okay, so this is another question, not from our viewers, but you bring up Sean McVay, and I know the talk has been a lot of teams want to hire this new type of coach that Sean McVay is supposedly supposed to be, because of his explosive plays and high scores. Well, this game, like you said, they concentrated on the run. It was almost like it wasn't about the explosive plays. It was about knowing your opponent.
Look at you, football Nikki.
What?
Analyzing
I've been learning.
No, I mean, that's the thing. It was the Rams. People think that the Rams and Sean McVay, that it's this guru, tricky kind of stuff. It's very basic. Even in their pass game, what they do is a lot of window dressing. Okay. So maybe some different personnel groups and some motion, and they're running the same basic stuff, but they're giving the defense different looks. So in talking with the defensive coaches, whether Chris Richard, Rod Marinelli, talking with guys like Jeff Heath and Byron Jones, Chido Awuzie, they'll tell you they're not running complicated stuff, but they're trying to make it look all tricked up. So we just can't buy into all that window dressing stuff. We just need,
basic
alignment, assignment, keys. You always hear that from a coach. Alignment, assignment, keys. Just, don't get caught up in all the stuff going on. Just hone in, because they're not, they're trying to make it look tricky, and it's not.
It's not.
And again, when you can run the ball effectively, you don't have to do all that crazy stuff with the passing game, because they were just running it down our throats. And credit to the Rams offense, they were outstanding. This was, I mean, obviously the worst the defense played this year. And the other time was the loss to the Colts in December.
Yeah.
And that was one where they effectively ran the ball. Our guys got worn down, and it was a great game by the Colts offensive line.
Okay.
Tip of the cap to them. The Rams did it even better than what the Colts did.
Wow. Okay. Next question. Kate in Atlanta. She says, Christy, have you ever been on the sideline with the female referee who worked the playoff game this weekend? Oh,
yes. In fact, I have. Sarah Thomas, and have interviewed her a couple times for 5 Points Blue when we've had the NFL has the officials meeting, the officiating crews. They have, they meet throughout the year, but their big meeting in the summer is always in Irving, the Dallas-Fort Worth area near the airport. And so they're made available to the media. And so I've interviewed Sarah a couple times. But yes, it was a history-making weekend for women in the NFL because Sarah, who is the first full-time female official, and she's actually not a referee. She started off as a line judge and then got promoted a couple years ago to head linesman.
Okay.
And that's when they changed the name from head linesman to
Down
judge. Down judge. So it says DJ instead of HL on the back of their striped shirt. But anyway, Sarah worked the game on Sunday. She worked the Patriots game up in New England. But on Saturday, Terry Valenti, who is the first female replay official, first full-time NFL replay official, when they go and they, there's a challenge flag or there's 2 minutes or it's a scoring play or a turnover and they go to video review. There's a person in the stadium up in the, near the coach's booth, and they're the go-between between the league office in New York and with the referee down on the field.
Okay.
And so they're in charge of all the replay personnel that are there. And Terry Valenti, she was one of the communicators before, but now she's the first full-time replay official in the NFL, and she worked the game on Saturday.
Awesome. So she's not on the sideline.
No, she's up in the booth.
Okay.
Up in the booth. And so, it was a historic weekend. And the one thing I want to note about that is when you get to the postseason in the NFL, and I think we talked about this a couple weeks ago, or maybe it was last year during the postseason, but it's kind of like all-star crews.
Yeah.
So the fact that Sarah and Terry were working this weekend, it means that they had great regular seasons.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so kudos to them.
Very good. Very good. Because the crews are different.
That's right. During the regular season, you have a crew, and they'll this week they're working the Cowboys-Eagles game. The next week they may work the Chiefs-Browns game, and the next week, they get their assignment a couple weeks ahead of time.
Gotcha.
But we've had Sarah do games. Each of the years she started in 2015, and we've had her once a year. I think one year we had her twice. But she's very nice, very cool. And I've not met Terry Valenti, but I hope to meet her so that we can do an interview for 5 Points Blue.
That's awesome. All righty. Next question. Robbie in Las Vegas. All right. When do the Rams play the Cowboys next season? I want to make plans to come to that game. Is that something?
Yeah, so that everyone knows who you're going to play next year, but unfortunately we're going to have to wait till mid to late April for the actual schedule to come out. So we know our opponents, we know the Rams are coming to town, but we won't know the date until the NFL releases the schedule. Last year it was about April 19th or 20th when it was released, so it's usually a week or a week and a half before the draft. So we've got to wait a little while, but actually I can tell you the opponents that we have.
Yeah.
So we know that we play at home and away against our NFC East rivals. So you have the Redskins, the Giants.
Redskins,
Eagles, okay?
I know that.
Okay, so the Rams are coming.
Okay.
So are the Packers.
Oh, wow.
So are the Vikings.
Okay.
And then a couple of teams from the AFC East, because the Cowboys in the NFC East are playing teams from the AFC East. So the Buffalo Bills are coming to AT&T Stadium.
Oh, wow.
And the Miami Dolphins are coming to AT&T Stadium.
Okay.
The other two AFC East teams, we travel there. So I get to freeze my tail off at the Patriots and at the New York Jets.
And you just know that those games are going to be in December.
Please put us there in September, I'm kind of hoping now that the thing, we play twice in New York because we play at the Jets and at the Giants. So please put one of those in September or early October. But now I'm kind of hoping that the Patriots win the Super Bowl because they'll have the Thursday night kickoff game, and maybe they'll send the Cowboys up there the first week of September instead of like the last week or later in December. And so our away games next year, in addition to at the Patriots and at the Jets. Okay. We play at the New Orleans Saints.
Okay.
So that's going to be a really tough game. Mm-hmm. And at the Bears. The reason why we play the Bears and the Saints is the Cowboys finished first in the division, so they have to play other first-place teams. Oh. So the Bears finished in first place in the North, right? And then the Saints finished in first place in the South. and then the Rams finished in first place. So I say that we were going to have to play the Bears anyway because we're playing the NFC North.
Okay.
So, but the reason why we're playing the Rams and the Saints is first place teams.
Gotcha.
So,
wow.
You hear the word parity a lot when it comes to the NFL, and it's like they try and make it's very socialist in the NFL, right? There's revenue sharing. There are different ways, the league is geared for everyone to finish 8-8. It's because like if you do really well during the season, you get a later draft pick. If you're really bad, you get early draft picks because they're trying to help you get good again. Well, the most effective way really that they accomplish parity is by scheduling. So one reason why the Eagles struggled this year, the Eagles, because they had finished first place the year before, they had to play a first place schedule this year.
Well, gee, it doesn't seem like the Patriots have struggled.
The rules don't apply to the Patriots. Whether it's Deflategate or videoing, Spygate or no. I mean, that's what makes what they have done so incredibly special. Truly, the league is geared to make everyone even.
Yeah,
and what Bill Belichick and owner Robert Kraft and Tom Brady, it's amazing what they do every year because it's all of the, was it 8 conference championship games in a row?
Yes. Again, incredible. My husband said that over the weekend. He was like, he could have 8 rings.
They had not played an away playoff game since, 2006 or 2003? It had been like over 13 years. And it's because they always have home field advantage.
Yes.
Wow. So the fact that they actually have to go to Kansas City this weekend, they're
mad about that.
Patriots fans are used to having the AFC Championship game at home.
Wow.
But it's a remarkable schedule next year that the Cowboys have. It's going to be super tough, but it's always great to go to New Orleans, and the Cowboys play the Packers at home and the Vikings at home, and so there's going to be a lot of cheeseheads coming to Arlington.
Speaking of the Packers, do you think Aaron Rodgers is going to be with the Packers next year?
Oh, shit. Oh gosh, yes, for sure.
Okay,
absolutely, yeah. They get their new head coach. Aaron Rodgers isn't going anywhere.
He's not going anywhere.
Oh gosh, no. Okay. No, he's fantastic. He's other than Cowboys players, he's my favorite player to watch.
Really?
All time. Oh, for sure.
Okay.
For sure. Fantastic.
All righty. Next question is from Mary in Austin. All right, this one's kind of long. I watched the Eagles-Saints game on Sunday and like Nick Foles, even though he plays for Philadelphia. But I was confused by what the announcer said. Is he going to be back to the Eagles, or is he going to be a free agent? And if he's a free agent, any chance he returns to Texas to be a Dallas Cowboy?
Well, if Mary's from Austin, I know she likes Nick Foles because he's from Austin.
Yes.
So wasn't that something to have the two Westlake quarterbacks going against each other, Nick Foles and Drew Brees on
That's
Sunday?
Very cool.
Nick Foles has a year left with the Eagles that they can pick up if they want him to play. But Nick Foles has a buyout. So hang on, I have it written down. Here's the thing. Nick Foles wants to be a starter.
Oh, he wants to be a
starter somewhere.
Makes sense. No, was he a starter before?
No, he was the backup to Carson Wentz.
Always.
Well, I mean, he had been a starter before Carson Wentz was drafted.
Okay. A starter for the Eagles?
And for the Rams. And,
okay.
I mean, yeah, he's had an interesting career.
Okay.
So the thing is, if the Eagles try and keep him next year, remember, you're paying Carson Wentz, and he's your starter.
Yes.
So the Eagles can exercise a $20 million option in Foles' contract to keep him this coming season. That's a lot of money for a backup quarterback.
Yeah, it is.
But Foles can buy out that option by paying back $2 million.
Oh, wow.
So what's likely to happen is the Eagles want to keep him. He pays the $2 million. He's going to make more than that being available as a free agent and signing what he hopes is a big money contract elsewhere where he can be a starter or at least compete for the starting job.
And when does he have to make that decision?
I'm not sure about that when the option – usually it's when the league new year begins, so they'd probably have about 5 or 6 more weeks on that.
Got it.
I'm not sure particularly his situation, but usually it's at the start of the league year.
Okay. Okay. Want to switch gears a little bit. When the end of the season comes, I always feel like it's kind of like a gut punch because you're running full speed and then it just ends. And
kind of like hitting a wall, like
yeah, exactly,
like
that's
Zeke
exactly
Elliott going against Ndamukong Suh on Saturday night. Yeah.
Yes. Well, so I hear everyone talking about, well, the Cowboys are a young team and they'll be great next year. Well, I feel like that's not really promised because contracts may not be extended, players could get traded. I mean, what's the outlook on that? What does it look like?
Well, 2016, coming off of Dak and Zeke's rookie year, and the Cowboys were, 13-3 and had the disappointing early exit from the playoffs. But it's like, ooh, we're going to be back. And then, even though they won 9 games, it's kind of like, oh, everyone was so disappointed by the previous year, 2017, and you had the Zeke suspension and so much going on in injury. So I think that the bottom line, and Jason Garrett talked about this yesterday, the bottom line is nothing is promised. And Jason Garrett in his season-ending press conference, it's like, what did you learn from this season and from 2016 into 17 that you learn from history and carry forward? And he says, the main thing is the need to start off fast in the season.
Okay.
Because the Cowboys this year digging themselves that 3-5 hole.
Yes.
The trade for Amari Cooper, the change with the offensive line coach and going with Mark Colombo.
Yes.
You can point to certain things that happened, but, I mean, this could have easily just continued in a downward spiral from that 3-5. So I think that the mental toughness that the guys showed, the way that they were able to overcome those early obstacles and get on that 5-game win streak and then finish, well in December, I think it gives you hope. Yeah. But there are a lot of questions going into the offseason and players whose contracts are up. I think the number one priority is making sure you get DeMarcus Lawrence signed to a new deal.
Yes.
Because he played this past season for a little over $17 million, but it was a franchise deal, and so it's 1 year. And so now the Cowboys could franchise him again, but he's not going to want to be franchised. He's going to want a long-term deal with a lot of upfront money, and that's the number one priority because guys like Dak and Zeke, Byron Jones, you still have another year or in some cases 2 years on a contract, but you want to get them signed now, and get them in-house and not wait until their contracts are up.
Gotcha.
But first you got to get DeMarcus Lawrence signed before you can talk about any, in my mind, get D-Law done and then extensions for Dak and Zeke and Byron and the like. You've got more time with them. You don't have time with D-Law. You got to get it done.
Got it. Okay. This is right on this topic. Sandra and Wiley, she says, I love Sean Lee, but he barely played this year. Do you think the game at LA was the last time we will see him in a Cowboys uniform?
Well, I hope not, because I also love Sean Lee.
Yeah, he's good.
But he is on the books for just over $10 million next year.
Okay.
And unless I think that what will happen, this is my prediction, that the Cowboys will go to him in the offseason, and Sean knows that they're not going to pay $10 million to a guy who's a rotational player and showed, unfortunately, again this year, that he couldn't stay healthy through the season. And thank goodness Leighton Vander Esch had such a breakout campaign.
For sure.
But I think everyone in this building loves Sean Lee and wants him. You want Sean Lee on your team. He is an asset. But not at $10 million. You simply cannot afford it. And so you go to him and his representative in the offseason and see if he'll take a pay cut and hopefully stay. And for someone like Sean, who is embedded in this community and loves it here and understands the situation, hopefully he'll be open-minded to that. But if he wants to start and play elsewhere and thinks he can still, thinks he should still be a 50 or 60 play a game guy and, doesn't want to take a pay cut and thinks he can get big money elsewhere, then, the Cowboys would have to release him. But you cannot pay a rotational guy $10 million a year.
Got it. Okay.
And if the Cowboys release him, he would count a little over $3 million in dead money. So he's going to cost you money if you cut him.
Gotcha.
But $3 million is a lot more affordable than $10 million.
For sure.
So that's why it behooves you, if he's going to cost you $3 million anyway in dead money, come up with some kind of deal that's works for him, works for the organization, and keeps him here because he's such a valuable member of this team.
Definitely. Okay, next question. Josh and Tyler. Wow, he's asking, is Chris Richard leaving, and who will replace him? Because he's been being interviewed for.
He did 3 interviews that day after the win over Seattle in the wild card round with the Dolphins and the Bucs and the Jets. Well, the Bucs and the Jets have already filled their head coaching vacancies. Bruce Arians, who used to be with the Cardinals, is going to the Bucs, and Adam Gase, who was fired by the Dolphins, is going to the rival, up to the Jets, and then so the Dolphins' job is still open, but the rumor, all the reports are that Brian Flores, who is took over the defensive play calling with the Patriots, he was the linebackers coach, and then calling the defense this year, that he's going to he's the number 1 choice for the Dolphins and not Richard. But as we know, the Patriots are still in the playoffs and playing the AFC Championship game this weekend. And if they win, then, they've got the Super Bowl. We've got to wait another couple weeks after that. So it looks like Richard is not getting the Dolphins job.
Okay.
And so all the holes would be filled, and
I hope he stays here.
Yes. so he'll stay here. And then it's like, well, are you going to give him a title bump, from secondary coach to something else? And so does that affect Rod Marinelli? And Rod Marinelli's not going anywhere. And some of you may have seen him kind of go off on the media right after the game, the Rams game on Saturday night, when he was asked if he was going to retire. He's like, why would you ask me that question? And
right.
Believe me, Marinelli's not going anywhere. He's got way too much to give and too much passion for the game and love for his job.
I'm just going to ask you a question. Do you think it was a little bit disrespectful this season, the way the media sort of made it seem as though it was Chris Richard's defense and not Marinelli's defense?
Yeah, I think that the national media picked up on that and ran with it. And didn't understand how. And it's true. Richard doing the play calling and stuff, but it's very collaborative.
Yes.
And I think what people should do is realize how respectful Rod Marinelli was through this whole thing, and he loves to see these young coaches grow and have these opportunities, and he has so much respect for Chris, and Chris is very thankful to Rod for sharing a lot of those duties. And what happened was Marinelli really empowered him. So
awesome. Awesome. Well, our time is up already. Of course it flies by. Do you want me to get another one? Well, I don't have any more. That was it. No.
Okay.
I do have one more.
Okay.
Jesse in Dallas, she is asking, is Scott Linehan returning as the offensive coordinator?
Oh, gosh. We should have gone. We should have ended the show. Remains to be seen.
Yes.
Jason Garrett, and Stephen Jones yesterday, they're all saying, we haven't had those meetings yet. We've just had the player exit interviews. But I think Jason Garrett first stated, hey, we don't anticipate any changes. And then he kind of, it's not that he really backtracked, but he more clarified from a radio interview on Monday morning to his end of the season press conference on Monday afternoon. It's like, hey, we hadn't even thought about that.
Right.
But
because in all honesty, can they really? They're coaching the Pro Bowl, correct?
Right. Yeah, but that doesn't really have any effect on if you're going to make any changes. But
got it.
But I think. To borrow, I mentioned Terry Valente earlier, to borrow a phrase, maybe upon further review.
Okay.
We'll see if there are any changes in regards to offensive.
All righty. We'll stay tuned.
The offensive side of the ball.
Very good. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We will see you next time right here on 5 Points Blue.
This has been a production of 5 Points Blue, DallasCowboys.com, and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about this, Cowboys? Yeah!